Hello friends, Angela Tombari here. Today I'm sharing the project I made for the Sketch Friday of HKC Club. My assignment was to create cards using the beautiful sketch designed by Tanya Hubbard, which challenged us to use a large cut file or a die cut and incorporate some stitching in the project. Well, I decided to use the big butterfly of the sketch to shape my cards. For doing that, I first printed the sketch and then I copied the outline of the butterfly on a sheet of copy paper. Then I traced the butterfly on the paper. Actually, on half of the paper it was sufficient, because then I folded the paper in two and then I cut using a pair of scissors. For my first card, I used the negative of the butterfly on this beautiful paper of Truly Grateful collection by Paige Evans. In this way, I was able to see the pattern and decide where to trace the butterfly. Again, I cut the butterfly with a pair of scissors, leaving this time about 1/4 of an inch of seam around the trace of the pencil. Then I punched the holes for the stitching along the drawn line of the butterfly. For the stitching, I used ochre twine I had in my stash, and that I was lucky enough because it perfectly matched the yellowish of the paper. I tied a knot at the beginning of the stitching, and then I started stitching with a regular backward stitching. I think this is the correct name in English, or maybe back stitching. During the stitching, I try to keep the work clean because the card is visible on both sides. And for doing that, I use a back stitch, trying to keep the thread of the back side always in the same position. You can see it from the close-up. If you can see, I pull the thread always down. When I finished the stitching, I fixed the edges of the butterfly, cutting as close to the thread as possible. I folded the butterfly in two, and the base of the card was ready. Then the fun part. I decorated the card using the embellishments from the August kit, using mainly the die cut frames by Pretty Little Studio because I think the florals are gorgeous. I decided to create a closure for the card, and I used a long piece of gold twine, long enough to wrap around the card 3 times. I sticked it in place under the embellishment of the front part of the card. Also here I use the timeless die cut frames from Pretty Little Studio and some other embellishment from Pink Fresh Studio. This is the second card. Here I first created the base of my card and I cut it big enough to include the butterfly, to incorporate the butterfly inside. And for the butterfly, I used a Maggie Holmes paper called Genuine from Heritage Collection, which you can find in the August main kit. This time I used the positive of the butterfly I previously cut, and then I cut with a pair of scissors the butterfly. Again, for the decoration of the card, I used mainly the die cut frames from Pretty Little Studio. The collection is called Indian Summer. And for the note to the recipient, I created a little tag that fits the one wing of the butterfly. And I stick in place on the other side. And here are the 2 cards, one shaped in the shape of a butterfly and the other one that contains the butterfly inside. So thank you for watching. Goodbye.